Good evening, Hopkinton, and welcome to the Hangout Hour,
Ready,
HKM's
camera
Now
two?
weekly series dedicated to bringing you interesting community topics and interviews. This is a live program, so please do send us your thoughts and comments. Our contact information will be on the screen throughout the entire program. Tonight, I'm your host, Mike Terosian, and in addition to the live interview with our fire chief, Steve Slamman, we'll be bringing you a pre-recorded segment
He should be
with
reading
Abby
up here.
Rosenberg, the director of the Mental Health Collaborative. We hope you stay tuned for that.
Ready to?
But right now,
Take two.
welcome Chief Slamman. How we doing?
Hi, Mike.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Ready, three?
Good to see you. I'm hearing a lot of background here. I
am-
actually spent 10 minutes on Google Meets, and now I'm on Zoom. So, I'm trying to connect with you correctly.
That's fine. I think you're doing it right. I just hope our microphone number one isn't still on. But, anyways, Chief, thanks for coming on tonight. And it's been a while since we saw you and had some kind of update from the fire department. And so now that and I know you're the emergency management director, so I'm just listen when I say this. COVID is over, and and we are back to normal in the lovely community of Hopkinton. True statement, false statement, what?
So, I kind of, like all of us, wanted to feel that definitely like a month ago. I think the reality is, our preparedness kicks in and we just keep watching and see what's going on. So what I know is Sean McAuliffe is my expert resource. He's on vacation this week finally, and boy, did he deserve that.
Yes, he did.
But what I've seen is we've had a little uptick nationally. But the good news in our preparedness is Hopkinton did really well with vaccination rates, and we're not seeing that same type of uptick here locally. The stats for this week were really good. I talked to Sean yesterday. He didn't see much activity. So I'm cautiously optimistic. So we still prepare, and we're still preparing for, we still have a pool of young kids that aren't vaccinated, and we've got to work with the schools and figure out the fall. So all that's on the table, but things are good in Hopkinton right now. I'd like to sound more optimistic, but I got to keep everybody in the game here.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no doubt. You're not trying to hide anything. And so the main thing that I want to know, things are good with COVID. COVID gave us Hopkinton's second manned fire station on the west side of town, Station 2, the old Woodville station. And I'm guessing that's still going.
Yeah, it is. I evaluate that ongoing. So the fact that we had such a low rate of COVID and that Station 2 isn't ideally positioned as I keep looking at it and deciding what to do. And I'm just taking it on a week by week basis. And I'll just kind of update the community as I go. There's a chance that we would bring the groups back to the station. I have to refurbish engine 4, which is my only pumper that actually fits in that building.
That's right, yeah.
So I am refurbishing that in a few weeks. So I'll really give it a hard evaluation then, and I'll just see where COVID is then. And it's like all the decisions we made in COVID. We'll take the data, see what's in front of us. If COVID is stayed low, I may bring everybody back here because operationally we can cover the town a little better from here than from Woodville. It's just not in an ideal spot. It's okay, but it's not ideal. And I know for the residents of Woodville, that stinks when I say that, but it's a rural area. And, 9 out of their 10 responses is they're coming back towards this facility. So that's just not advantageous for us.
Right, and would it be having a station on the west side would probably better if you went more south and get onto like the West Main Street side of things? That would probably do you a little bit better.
Yeah, in our public safety study, we've done a lot of work there. We know the hot spot is right downtown. Like I told you in the past, the people before me picked a really ideal location for a fire station, and so there's a little activity to the east. Luckily, they put a lot of safety systems by sprinkling all the residents that whether it's Fairview Estates, whether it's all of the legacy units, they all have fire protection sprinklers, and we have a pretty good shot down East Main Street to get there, so our times are really good. And more of the activity is towards 495 and West Main Street. That's really where the computer tells us the next improvement is, and where there's likely to be some more development in the future. So again, it's stuff we keep assessing. We keep looking at the data. I'm working with the town manager right now. We have a consultant that we still reference. We're looking at, the town doesn't really have any ideal land for us to go to. So that's kind of our short story, and we're looking hard there. And we're trying to put more supportive data together so that if we have an ask of the community, we can bring that to them in an informed way.
Excellent. And with the buildup in the community, as you mentioned, the schools get this a lot, and so does it the town. But fire department wise, how's the legacy development? I'm not going to say helped your call volume, but what has that done? What have you seen as far as your calls going east?
So we put all the calls on what we call a heat map, and it's nothing that's extraordinary to us. The neat story that I can share with you is the home fire sprinkler systems in the residents. In the last 5 years that I've been chief, we've had 2 fires. Both of the fires were contained by a single sprinkler head. And they're success stories. We go there, we will literally don't need the outside resources. The safety on the firefighters is improved, and the residents, their safety is improved. They're not extending to the neighboring dwellings, and that's what allowed us to really bring the density into that area and get more of the units. So that's kind of our success story. It helps, in a perfect world, that helps reduce the number of firefighters or additional fire stations that we need to mitigate future problems. So that's what you'll hear me talking about. If there's more development, there's other alternatives that can be less expensive. One of the studies we just came off of, we're talking about $15 million to get a whole public safety complex together. And that's,
sure.
And that's people, that's a lot of building and capital costs. So we're trying to manage that growth so that it stays reasonable to the community.
Now, the sprinkler installation into the residential has really grown over your tenure as chief, but it was started before you and had a lot of opposition before you, but as you see, times change. But, I mean, that started back at the end of Stewart and beginning of McMillan's tenure as chief to push the sprinklers. But it's amazing now how you hear when you're at just about all the planning meetings that
Yep.
you mention the sprinklers and the builders are there like, yeah, no problem.
It's the cost and the practicality has really improved while I've been chief. So that's what I try to bring forward. It's less than $2 a square foot. It's about a $1.32 to a $1.50. They're putting them in at Legacy. It's really low money. We are not having any nightmares, stories from them, so it's getting through those myths. The maintenance programs for them is really observation by the homeowner. It's really minor, and it's a success story. Like I said, 2 fires, and they were both extinguished by a single head, and the occupants are able to return to the home afterwards, and the close density of the other units aren't impacted, and that's the whole goal. If those occupants happen to have been outside of the house when the fire came in, so they weren't discovered immediately, and it's just neat that they were able to get back to their home and nobody else was impacted. Because you look at the first fire I had as fire chief, it was down on Hayden Row, and the first phone call is fire coming out of every window. And as we pull up, we're trying to get people out of the neighboring house, which was already starting to smoke. So that's dangerous for everybody, and we're avoiding that by this solution.
Absolutely fantastic. And that's funny you mentioned your first day as chief, because a lot of people in town have been talking. They heard you come as a almost private citizen during your public speaking moment at the select board meeting on June 15th, and you made some kind of announcement.
Yeah, this is, I talked to the board about my intention to retire. It's been kind of part of my plan. I've been here I've got all the years in, as they say. I'm really, have accomplished what I've wanted to accomplish. In my evaluation that I reported to the selectmen, this organization is running really well. A lot of people have worked hard to improve themselves. They're ready to move forward, and the timing's right. And just personally, I put a lot into what we've done in the last 18 months. And so when you line all that up together, plus the fact that my hip is starting to tell me that I'm getting old, no matter what I want to think, I said it's time to go. And a lot of good signals, and I'm happy, and I feel good about where the organization is, and what the community is doing with us. I think that's the hardest part. Is I've kind of built so many relationships from this position. That's my reward. I got to work with a lot of people, and it's been very rewarding. And weaning myself off of that is going to be tough.
Well, there's been a lot more than just your 5 years as chief building relationships. A lot of people don't understand the term what a townie means, and a townie means born and raised in the community. And you graduated high school here in Hopkinton. What year was that?
I graduated in '82.
82, right? And from there you were on the call department at that time, I believe.
Yes, I can't even tell exactly the date I got appointed. I started hanging around real heavy when Chief Clark got on, which was like '78, and that was as a youngster. My dad was a call firefighter, and then I can tell I got paperwork that says around '85 when I got out of college. In '85 and '86 is when I graduated from college, and that's when I was here a little bit more. And I think I finally got appointed to the fire department then. But really, right into high school, I spent some years here,
Yeah.
and it's been very rewarding. You brought up a really interesting point. Because the term townie has been used in all sorts of contexts over the years, and the fact is our community has changed a lot. It's the pure definition used to be like 3 generations, I believe, which disqualified me according to some of the experts, right? But the importance of the fire department connecting with everybody, we've really kind of discovered some new avenues, because I really need to be welcomed into everybody's house. And
Sure.
The work on unity and working together in this community, especially in the last couple of years, has really become ultra important. So I almost shy away from that a little bit in the context of it all, because in more of my new relationships in the last 5 years are people that are probably came to Hopkinton in the last 15 or less years. But that's a lot of our town now, and so that's our new community, and I enjoy it. I embrace it. There's challenges with it, but it's really it's fun. I've enjoyed watching my group of firefighters transition, because they all lived in Hopkinton 30 years ago, and now I've probably got a handful that live in Hopkinton. So
yeah. I mean, it is thing, and I'm proud to be one of them, one of you guys in your reserves. But so yeah, you took off. You went to school. You said up until '86. Then you went to where'd you go?
I went to Wentworth Institute of Technology, got a bachelor's degree in architectural engineering, and I got very lucky that I worked out in the field for a couple of years, and then when I got the calling to the fire department, which is the job I love, I thank God every day that I picked it.
I do too, and I'll never forget your first drawing that you did for the fire department was the old shed to sell the cotton candy and popcorn.
Isn't that amazing?
That was amazing. That 20 by 20 that was able to be
hot dog stand.
The hot dog stand.
Like
They could
yeah.
assemble and disassemble. Because back in the old days, not everything was the common. We had to spend the weekend down at Colella's, on the corner of Colella's, on the corner for 2 days, and then early Monday morning we'd have to take it apart, walk it up the street to the common, and set it up again.
The amount of effort just to design that, and how I drove a lot of people crazy just to assemble it. I was a young engineer then that needed some work still.
So, yeah, then you so that was '86, and you became full time 1987, correct?
89.
89 was full time, right? And
Yep.
that's right. And you were back around '87. That's right. And
Yep.
you're in '89 when you were hired. you were part of doubling the size of firefighters.
Right. We had one firefighter on a shift, and that would our group that came on brought it to two.
Do you remember the names? You go with the names? Remember everyone that was on duty then?
I do. Geez, you put me on the spot. So who got hired was myself, Bob Santucci, Billy Lukey, and me.
And,
Right?
Yep.
And Ed Wright, I think, was in the group before me.
Ed Wright was just before you, yes.
Yep. Yeah, something like that. I went to the academy with Ed Wright.
Yep.
That was an awesome experience.
Yep. I just want people at home to hear the names. Because,
Yep.
like I like to remind everybody at home too, please give us your comments. Steve's a great resource here, and he'd love to hear a fun question or a little story from you. So just look at the bottom page. You can shout out in the chat on YouTube. You can tweet us, Facebook us, send us an email, or call. See, we can have them actually call on the phone. Maybe we'll get Mom to call
Right.
and ask you a couple questions.
Well, I got to put you on the spot because you're one of my remaining 3 call firefighters. So maybe the trivia question or who are the other 2, right? And
The other 2, well, I'm already trying to get a picture of the last 2, and that would be Nick Danahy and Donnie Collins.
And I just, I turn to you guys when I really need help, and that's the awesome kind of history of the call fire department. We're so much busier today than we ever were back then, but it's awesome that I can make those phone calls.
Yeah, it's nice too when I walk into the station and the new faces, some I don't know, and they treat me like when they hear who I am, and they're like, "Oh, you're one of the senior guys." Okay, so they're trained really well. So, anyways, so from '89, you went from 4 firefighters to 8, which was you're doing 10-hour days and 14-hour night shifts. Then you became a shift officer. You became a lieutenant. You got your first of 5 bugles,
Yep.
and
That was
you
awesome.
moved right
Really,
along.
I always tell everybody that's kind of the funnest part of going through the ranks is being a shift lieutenant. It's your first taste of leadership and working with others and all those fine things. And it was really awesome here because that was our first group lieutenants ever in Hopkinton when we had that group.
Yeah, that was great. And I just missed the old day room, which is now the officers' room. That's
Right.
a lot of pitch games were played there. And so, and then you grabbed a few more bugles under Chief Clark. You were his deputy.
Yeah, I had 7 years, I believe, as deputy, and I learned so much in those 7 years. It was amazing. I did some studying before that, but that's where I really learned the running of a fire department. And I was privileged to have that 7 years there. Chief Clark let me do a lot. I loved the budget part of it, so that's where we really fit together good. And then when I went and got my master's degree then in public administration, I worked with Maureen Dwinell. She was a real staple up at Town Hall then, and she really allowed me to come in there weekly and just learn all the intricacies of a municipality and how it runs. For you to survive as a department head, you need to know how the whole thing works. So, she was a great teacher, and I really enjoyed it all.
And I bet that helped because, how many people wait all those years later to go back to
Right.
college? You went from 86, and you wait 15 years later and do it again. Ooh.
I did much better the second time around than the first time around. I'll tell you that. I was ready for it that second time.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah. All right, so the department's grown, and then in 2016, you got the calling, you got the nod.
Yeah.
You got that 5th bugle in the corner office.
Yeah, very rewarding. I just can't tell you how much I'm lucky because I got so personally satisfied by it all, but I'm really excited looking at the organization run. We get a lot of good comments. I got another card today, just thank you cards, and that's not me. I'm sitting here in the office. They're out doing things, and that's like, to me, that's like my little background success story when I can watch all the thanks that they get. I said, oh, I've had I've impacted that in a way, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, and you should be, and that's what makes your job, if you could say your job easier. If anything, that's a blessing because
Sure.
what you had to undertake under your 5 short years as chief, Uh, the pandemic being, probably one of your worst moments, I would think,
Yeah,
right?
it definitely was challenging, but I can tell you the reward was the, just working with the Board of Health, that wasn't really a traditional element 20 years ago, right? And we literally worked side by side for 6 months,
Yep.
um, every single day, and that was awesome. That what they were doing the work, but I really helped bring some of the structure and assistance to them, and it was so much fun. And then our organization, just all of public safety, got really involved, assisting them to bringing them capacity. And so, although it was challenging, just knowing the hurdle we were going through, and a lot of conflict that was out there across the nation and even in Massachusetts, and I felt like our community did really well at uh, connecting with everybody, feeling that we were taking care of everybody. And to me, the litmus test was just our success rate
Right.
on vaccination and the resulting low rates of sickness that Hopkinton had compared to others.
And you know what? I think, and I'm going to say this as a fire department or firefighter, uh, working with others is easy because we rely so much on mutual aid, and
Yep.
we practice so much the incident command system on a
Right.
daily basis that working with an outside group becomes easy. And what you find is it's usually that other person that it's a little harder for them to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I brought to the table, and I think the experience is you can't take on incidents like that and be in conflict. It's impossible.
Right.
So I could just quickly talk to the group and say we have to figure our way through this and how to find alignment. And we use the I can't wait to see the post report on this. I'm working with the deputy, and he's really got strength in the background of the ICS system. And we made sure on the first time we opened up the emergency management room for this event, which was very early.
Yep.
It was literally I got to go look at the date. It's on the title of it, but we're talking February. We were in there preparing, and we set the structure together that said all of our decisions will be based on the CDC and the Department of Public Health, and we are going to just be driven by data and best practice and put the emotions to the side,
Sure.
and we really have held good to that. And I give Casey and Sean did so well at bringing knowledge to that area that it just made it all click really well.
It's not even the knowledge that they brought, but the way they could break it down to a layman's
Yep.
level that you're hearing all these terms and that you
Yep.
have no idea, and they know their audiences when they're talking to them. They know, all right, I'm talking to doctors here. All right, I'm going to talk more with the doctor speak.
Right.
And now I'm talking to a group of seniors. They bring it to that level, and I think that
Knowledge.
is what helped a lot of the communication in town, and that's why we had you guys on the hangout hour with us so much, was just to bring that information out.
Yep. And their board, I had never worked much with the Board of Health board, and their board was really talented too. And they were side by side with us. They stayed in the background, but they supported our whole group the entire way, all the way through the regional vaccination center in Westboro, which was just a crazy success story. So I just got to give them credit. That was nice to see that whole board rise to the occasion. This was a really big event for them compared to some of the other stuff they've had to deal with.
Right. So, all right. So now you had the COVID and so forth, but let's talk about your career a little bit here, of some of the bad things that you've seen out there, being a firefighter or a fire officer or whatever. I mean, one of the few bad things would be the house explosion next door. You
Hey, you
know,
know me. I don't like looking at things as bad things,
but
right?
well,
So
because I
you
want
know,
to
I
get
gotta.
to where we are on the good. I got a list here. I was ready for you today. So you had
So
that.
those are challenging incidents, and that was certainly one of them. And there was some tragedy behind it, so that's why I don't ever really talk a lot about it. But where I've been lucky in my career is many of these challenging incidents we've done well, at least structurally, and following our good practices, and I've been fortunate that way. I think we train a lot. Earlier, you just mentioned, from Arthur Stewart to Rick McMillan and things like sprinklers and smoke detectors. This department has been, for a small community, a small department, I feel like we've been progressive throughout those times. Arthur Stewart, we were one of the first communities to have a smoke detector, and smoke detectors and hardwire smoke detectors in Hopkinton save more lives than anything right now.
Absolutely.
They're really valuable. So I give him credit. And then the sprinklers that you talked about, the town supports us a lot for training. I have a really good budget, and I can send my firefighters out. I feel like part of what I brought to this community is when I travel to the FDIC conference a couple of times, I go to some of the other national conferences, so you learn best practices and you don't just get kind of stagnant to your own little silo in Hopkinton. So that's
Sure.
I give the town a lot of credit that way to support us.
Right, and it's not just more money that comes out of incidents, and I'll talk just a couple other ones, which a lot of people remember, like the big LNG rollover on the Pike, the propane truck on Spring Street, many searches and dive activations and so forth because of all of our water here in town, the three big lakes. So all that, yeah, you get a lot of money for that, and that's great. And then also the technology changed that allowed you to afford warning systems, like to evacuate areas when you had that accident on the Mass Pike and everything. But out of that, all the good that came as the department saw the needs. I mean, the town saw the needs of the department, and they went along with you. And one of the biggest one is your staffing. Right now, we're at 30, including yourself.
There's 31 firefighters, and then the deputy and myself.
Yep, 31, and that's outstanding. So you have five firefighters and a lieutenant per shift. You have some
Yep.
3 day timers.
There's
Um,
4
oh my
impacts.
God! And two inspectors, which is great. You have your fire prevention officers, and two. I'm sure you could probably use a couple more of those with all the building going on. I think they would probably like the help. And you do have a training officer too. That his job is strictly training, and that's outstanding. So you built all that up when, again, when we talked, you doubled the department when you started, from 4 guys to 8 guys. You also you went through the addition of the firehouse. Your office there.
Yep.
And one of the best things that I've seen you do is with your Safer Grant is what you do with our seniors,
Yep.
helping out the seniors. And can you explain real quickly what that entitles you to do?
Sure. It's so FEMA has a great program, and it's community risk reduction. So the fire service about 10 years ago was like led that initiative before FEMA even jumped aboard on it. And that was the Senior Safe program, and just the SAFE program, which dealt with kids, but the Senior Safe program followed that right afterwards. And they really got a lot of data that supported the work that he did. So, they trained kids safety initiatives, and I think we're in our second year without a child death in a fire, which is just amazing. And now with our seniors, we go in and we try to reduce risk for them through programs. We teach them about preparedness, and we do a program with them where we have these go bags, and they make sure they have their prescriptions identified and phone numbers written down, so that if they're under the stress of a storm or a power outage or something like that, we rehearse what they need to be prepared to do, and have help aligned in how we can help them. And then we try to work offers like looking at their home and do risk reduction, like if there's trip hazards or loose rails, or if there's a smoke detector or a carbon monoxide detector we could add. That's kind of the idea on it. And the fire service has attacked that. And literally now when I say community risk reduction, that is like our initiative, so that we're not just adding staff and building buildings to go respond to emergencies. We like to think that we can lower the number of emergencies in the future, and kind of control that growth so it's more sustainable.
I mean, I don't know any firefighter would ever admit this, but would you like to see that this fire prevention would put you guys out of a job?
Yeah, I mean, think of the sprinklers, what I just said to you, we pulled up to 2 units and that the fire was contained and controlled and literally out. So we're just using the first company in to remove smoke and overhaul what's there. So, we're kind of what we call the challenge of it. No, I won't say enjoyment, but that's better than some of the other fires we've gone to where literally you work to total exhaustion. You're stressed by the losses that a family goes through when there's a fire. Even if everybody's okay, there's a lot more to a fire than that, and it's really stressful. So that's the beauty of a sprinkler. It's hard to sell that to everybody because until you've gone through it, watching TV doesn't really do it justice. And so I try to bring it. Like you said, I try to talk to the planning board and try to bring it to educate people. And our goal is to not experience the emergency.
Right. Well, Steve, great job overall, and I'm actually going to cut it short. I'm going to leave out my last question, and it says, "When's your last day?" Because I know I'm not going to get that answer from you. So,
Getting close.
I know. But listen, I know I do have a little while, so I will get you back again. But
Thank you.
thanks, Chief. That's all the time we have for tonight. And
Well,
we
wait a
wish
minute. I just want Saturday, July 31st is Hazardous Waste Collection Day. So there, I got one piece in.
That's true. And if you wanted to, you can also see that information on hcam.tv, where we have it on the site. Thanks, Chief. Thanks again. We wish you well for now.
Thanks, Mike.
We're going to go to our pre-recorded segment where Jim Cousins caught up with Abby Rosenberg of the Mental Health Collaborative. Go ahead and roll, guys.
Welcome to the show, Abby, and thank you for making some time to be here with us.
Thank you so much, as always, for having me here.
Of course, it's great. Now, just in case people haven't heard yet, although I'm sure most people have, let's do a quick recap of the Mental Health Collaborative, what you do there.
Sure. So we started out a couple of years ago after a former patient of mine. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I've been practicing psychotherapy and pharmacology for years and years and years. And a former patient of mine who had moved away died by suicide. And I decided to start this nonprofit with the mission of really building resilient communities through mental health awareness and education. Really feeling like there is a huge need both in students and adults and in whole communities to increase mental health literacy, which sometimes we don't pay much attention to unless it becomes a crisis.
Right. That's so important. And I've seen the work that you've been doing, and it's really fascinating and it's really critical. I think that, I don't know, you could speak to this. It just feels to me that as time is going on, there are many important conversations that are starting to happen. And there are many things that in past decades would just be swept under the rug or would be ignored, or people would say it's something I have to bear alone. But it seems like now there's a lot more conversation about some of these topics, including mental health.
Yeah, I mean, we're so excited about the work we're doing, about the need for it. I'm as you know, I'm so passionate about it, and we're really making a lot of inroads both in schools and communities, educating people in businesses, and just having those conversations about mental health and trying to decrease the stigma so that people don't have to suffer silently, which has been the case for years and years.
Now, do you find that your work in schools has become easier? Is the younger generation more open and more willing to talk about and share experiences and grow together? Or do you find that there's a challenge still getting through and getting open with that?
I think the challenge of getting into schools is much more difficult than the kids being open to it. We were fortunate enough to get a grant to go into Hopkinton Middle School and some of the students in the high school in 9th grade this past year, and we did our curriculum with the remote students. And the feedback we got was tremendous. We're still looking at the quantitative hard data to get real results, but the qualitative and data and the feedback that we got from students was overwhelmingly positive, and they all across the board are so hungry for this information. They want to talk about it, and they want to learn what is mental illness, what is not mental illness, and what can we all do to fight the stigma so that people don't have to bear these things alone, just like they would never bear having asthma alone.
Now, that's a really, really important statement that you said when you say that the schools are telling you we want to know what is mental illness and what is not mental illness. Are you dealing directly with teachers who are working with that? Is it admin, nurses, guidance counselors? How does it work?
Well, it's kind of in my case, just getting in however we can. So, of course, Hopkinton is close to my heart. I know the Hopkinton schools and love the Hopkinton schools. And so we are going to be training Hopkinton middle and high school educators this summer to bring this particular mental health literacy curriculum into the schools. So that is excellent news. It's been hard in some schools to get to know who to talk to and to get our program in, because people are just so burnt out. They are trying to do so much. People are across the board anxious about going back to schools and jobs in general. So there's a lot of different emotions going around, and we're just doing our best to get this information into as many schools, as many communities, and as many organizations, corporations as we can, because everyone really does need it. As it turns out, not only in Hopkinton, we just had a training with Framingham Public Schools for their summer school, which was awesome. And we have an upcoming training, believe it or not, in a district in Minnesota.
Wow.
In a district in Wisconsin. So I guess, silver lining of this crazy pandemic is that now we are prepared to do our trainings virtually. So we can virtually go anywhere in the United States or in the country.
So just really quickly before we get back, how did they find you?
One was, I think, through social media. She was searching for she wanted something for her community as well as for the schools, and she was doing searches and came up with Mental Health Collaborative, and was so excited when she talked to me and said, wow, I thought I was going to have to find two separate organizations, but you guys can do it all. So we're going to be bringing our curriculum into their schools and also doing parent trainings for their community and some other organizations in their community to really teach everyone at the same time. So everyone has the same language, everyone can learn at the same time, which is really exciting. The Wisconsin district found me through a colleague.
Okay. Abby, that's so cool. That's so cool. Next thing you know, you'll be worldwide, which will be great.
That's my dream, is to be United States wide. I mean, I really feel so passionate that this information needs to be in middle schools and high schools and in communities. But the fact that kids graduate from high school and don't necessarily know what anxiety is or what clinical depression is, or many other of the mental illnesses, and how to promote positive mental health. The fact that that isn't something that's taught in schools is really concerning to me, because our brains are one of our most important organs in our body, probably in my mind the most important one, and things just aren't going in the right direction in terms of that type of education. So I do see it changing, and I hope that we can be on the ground level making those changes.
Wow, that's great. Now, that's a real silver lining from a very terrible past year that we've had. And so this year, having been very difficult, a lot of stuff just did not happen, or a lot of stuff just could not be what it was supposed to be. And I know that you had been contracted at Hopkinton's Middle School last year. Is there a commitment going forward into this coming year?
Yes, so we had a grant where we went in with our own educators. which, is just isn't that cost effective and is not sustainable, but we wanted to just get the information out and get things going. But we now got a grant through the schools. I think the Hopkinton Education Foundation is giving the schools a grant so that we can get the curriculum for everyone, which is really that's how it's meant to be, not just for, a slice of students, but for every student. So we'll be starting that in the fall, which is really exciting.
Great. Now, tell me what that's going to look like. Are you and your staff talking to students or talking to teachers or doing something different?
No, we have a train the trainer model. So it's multifaceted. So we go in and train as many faculty, school personnel, et cetera, as possible on the foundations of our approach, just so that everyone's on the same page in the school. Everyone has the same language. Everyone knows how to get care when you need care, and when do you know when you need care. So we go in and do that with the entire, as many school personnel as we can, and then we train the educators who will be teaching the curriculum. So we don't deal directly with the students. We train the trainer of the folks that will be doing the actual curriculum, educating the students. And on top of that, we also hold some parent assemblies so that the parents also know what the kids are learning. So it's kind of like we start at the schools and we build out so that we can reach even more people within the community from that school. So that's how it will work. We'll go in and train the end of the summer and give them everything they need to implement the curriculum.
Okay, and did you say plural, parent assemblies? Is it more than one time they'll be meeting?
Whatever they need, we'll do.
Okay.
I think it's hard to get parents out, so we may ask, hey, do you guys want virtual or do you want to come into the school? And that will be up to them. Maybe we'll have some wonderful people at a studio called HCAM that can always film it so that people who couldn't come then might be able to listen. So that's the beauty of having a place like HCAM in our town. And you guys are always so helpful with stuff like that. So yeah, I foresee us doing whatever it takes to build our mission, build resilient communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned it before I had to mention it, because I was going to mention it, because I feel that it's great. It's a great thing. And I love that you're opening up the opportunity for parents to also learn and see what their kids are learning and seeing as they're doing it. And not everybody can, get together on whichever night it's going to be, or whether it be in person or whether it be virtual or whether it be a hybrid. So I'm always excited to capture things like that so that you can reach as many over a larger period of time as possible. And in fact, I even see possibilities for maybe doing a little bit of a documentary kind of style in there, where we kind of go through the year, and talk with your presenters as they're training the trainers, and then maybe have some stories at the end of the year of how the training has went. And there's like a lot of possibilities there. I just love the concept of bringing this conversation forward so that people can learn. I really wish that we had this when we were kids, because a lot of the stuff that I find about, dealing with mental illness is really just good rules for life. It's like taking care of yourself. You're healthy and you're happy and you have a rewarding existence. It's all part of the package.
Yeah. And, we know that it's not always static, and that's what we teach too, that, there's ups and downs in life, and having good mental health means you know how to deal with some of the downs. You have the tools to deal with the downs. That doesn't mean you have a mental illness. It just means you're human.
Exactly. All right. So that's very exciting, and I look forward to more in the near future. Let's talk a little bit about the very recent past. What has the Mental Health Collaborative been doing over the summer?
Well, we in May, we had our May Mental Health Awareness Month series, our campaign, which was awesome. We had some 31 sponsors for each of the days of May. who paid a very doable amount to be the sponsor. It wasn't we weren't asking for a ton of money, but we just needed to make a little bit of money to do all the work that we needed to do. And then we featured 31 stories of people, whether it be their own struggles with mental health or people that they cared about or just giving advice. So we featured 31 stories, one every single day on our website. They're all still there. If anyone wants to look at mentalhealthcollaborative.org, we have them all there. And it was a great way to start fighting stigma.
So, very fascinating. In fact, I know we're going to get to preview a little or review a little sample here in a few minutes, but let's talk about like who are the people that created these short videos for your month, and how did you pick them or connect them, and what was the overriding like theme and goal of what you did over these 30 days?
Really, they were all over the map. A lot of people did audio because they wanted it to be anonymous. A lot of people wrote something, but we did get a ton of videos, which those brave people who put themselves on video was awesome. And we just put out we don't have a huge following yet, which I hope that actually this May campaign, our numbers increased following us on Facebook and Instagram and et cetera. So I hope that more people follow us on our website and on social media so that we can grow. But this time around was really like, okay, who can we get? And we ended up getting more than we needed at the very end, but it was kind of scary thinking, are we going to get 31 stories? But we did. And it worked out great. The one, I think you were going to show a short clip from one of our videos.
Yes.
That was who's actually a friend of mine now who I've met through this venture. He and his wife started a nonprofit called Kyle Cares after losing their son to suicide, Kyle. And they're just amazing people doing amazing work with a tragedy.
Okay. And yes, so actually, without saying anything more, let's take a couple minutes and see that video.
Hello, my name is Sue Johnson, and I'm here with my husband Jim to tell you a little bit about our son Kyle, who took his own life 3 years ago at the age of 19 while he was a sophomore in college. Kyle was a special soul with a special heart, known for his love of family and friends. Kyle had a passion for helping others and making people feel happy. He had a devotion to volunteering in the special needs community because making everyone feel included and special made Kyle feel the best. Although his life was far too short, Kyle's legacy of caring for others no matter how he was feeling himself remains with us today. It is why we have created a nonprofit organization, Kyle Cares, in his memory.
Since 2019, Kyle Cares has been dedicated to eliminating student self-harm and suicide by teens and young adults, as suicide is now the second leading cause of death in the United States for young adults between the ages of 14 and 24. We do this by assisting New England high schools and colleges to create environments and school cultures that enable students who might be struggling with mental health to seek help without shame or without hesitation. In 2 years, we have worked with our strategic partners to provide nearly $100,000 in funding for over 65 mental health awareness workshops, training, and programs that have impacted thousands of students, faculty, and parents. This work is needed now more than ever. Mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, and suicide were already rising at alarming rates before COVID-19, and the pandemic's impact on student mental health has led to an even greater need for mental health services. As we support this mental health awareness campaign by the Mental Health Collaborative, we share these words written by Kyle in a final letter he left for us.
You should try and be nice to everyone. I know it's hard, but everyone has a story that will break your heart. Be good to everyone, because you never know what someone is going through. Thank you.
That was a very powerful video, and I'm sure the rest of the stories that you shared on your website that month are equally so.
Yeah.
How was it approaching these people? Did you have to ask them? Was there a lot of hesitation? Were they eager to, share their story and try to make an impact in this area?
Everyone we put a request out there and we got responses from people, so they wanted to share their stories. But believe me, I know from talking to many of them that it wasn't easy, and it was therapeutic for some of them to share their story. And they also felt good that they could make an impact on others. There were other people that reached out to us and said, I want to share, but I'm just not ready. It's too difficult right now. So that's okay too. I mean, stigma is real and it's going to take us a while to break it down, but we will do our best through education to do that.
Yeah. Now, I know you're going to say, well, that's what we're working on. But I'm just curious if there's any kind of insight you can give as to how do you break down this stigma? How do you attack this?
I think it's probably a multi-prong approach, but number one is education. People who become mental health literate realize that this is a disease in the brain, just like diabetes is a disease of the pancreas. So that in itself, the education will decrease the stigma. Standing up to people who misuse language or who perpetuate stigma by repeating myths like, oh, that person's so crazy, they're violent, when someone has an illness. That's just a myth that people are more violent when they have mental illness. That's not true. So standing up to people, using the right language, learning, those are some ways I can think of, off the top of my head to helping to end stigma.
Yeah. And, when I think about that, like I'm listening to what you're saying, and so oftentimes there are stories where people with a phone will capture an event happening where someone is being abusive to someone else for whatever reason, whatever bias they may have. I don't want to get into any isms right now, but like whatever that is, I always find it appalling how, a human could treat another human for something that has nothing to do with that first person. Like why is that person even saying something about that? What do they get? Like, what do they get at that? I've heard the concept of some people feel that they get higher by pushing other people down, and where other people feel like we all get lifted up together, that kind of thing. And I really don't understand the driving nature of some of these attacks that people are suffering, and some of the stigmas that are moving on. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I think every situation is, of course, going to be different. But generally speaking, the more we, pull together and learn and are kind to others, the better the world will be. And I know that sounds really cliche, but, there's too many people suffering silently and not able or not feeling comfortable enough to talk about it. And we're all human, and we all can experience mental challenges, mental illness, mental problems. So, being tolerant and being kind can be really helpful.
Right. I'm wondering, as you were talking, I'm thinking, do you deal with the topic of addressing people who perhaps may be instigating? In addition to talking to people who are suffering the effects of stigma.
I thankfully haven't had that opportunity to. If I came across someone, I most definitely would. But in our trainings, and it's interesting because you asked what we've been up to, we just piloted something that's been in the works for a long time. It's our young adult mental health literacy program. Sorry, I have a new puppy.
Oh, beautiful.
Good for my mental health. So we just piloted our young adult mental health literacy program for 18 to 25-year-olds and got tons of awesome feedback from these young adults that were from all over the country. And we're going to now pilot it with high schoolers because some of the feedback was this is great for college age and even post college age, but high schoolers need it too. So we're going to, get a little more piloting done before we then polish it up and start to market it and get it to as many young adults as possible. But those are the types of people that may not have got, we didn't have this curriculum in high school or middle school when they were in that position. So we'd like to get that as far spread as possible too. And it's a little bit different from our curriculum that we put in schools because it addresses issues that are specific to young adults like transitions, loneliness, social relationships, also stigma, how to get help, how do you know when you need help, things like that we don't necessarily cover fully in the curriculum, but that are really important challenges that young adults and young people are struggling with. I mean, adults probably as well, but as we know, there's definitely a recent trend over the last couple of years, even pre-COVID, where young adults are suffering more from things like symptoms of depression, anxiety, and loneliness.
Right. So when do we follow up on that? Are you working on? Is that going to be something that you're thinking about in a few months, or and it could take you a couple of years to kind of pull it all together? What do you think?
Definitely not years.
Okay.
I hope that we finish our next pilot in the fall because we need to do it when kids are in school, I think. And then I would hope that by the beginning of 2022, we have this ready to go. Maybe even before that, because I also have some college kids who are interested in perhaps using it as part of a club on a university. So there's tons of ideas, and I think we'll just see where we can go with it. But it's really exciting.
It actually sounds really exciting. You're all over the map. This is great.
Yeah, I feel like an octopus, but that's okay.
That's great. All right. Well, listen, Abby, thank you so much for joining us. This is one of our first new hybrid shows that we're producing this segment here in the studio and via the internet. So I really appreciate your time and talking about this really important stuff, and look forward to talking to you very soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you as always for having me and for everything else you do in our community.
All right. All right. Take care.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
What a wonderful organization that is. Thank you, Jim and Abby. Thank you all for tuning in to the Hangout Hour. And we hope you'll come back next week for more stories and events in our lovely, lovely town of Hopkinton. I'm Mike Terosian, and for all of us here, have a good night.